South Africa, a country celebrated for its vibrant culture, diverse landscapes, and economic progress, is also one that has long struggled with the harsh reality of violent crime. From bustling cities like Johannesburg to quiet townships, the stark contrast between its dynamic growth and persistent crime rates cannot be ignored. Despite the country's impressive strides in technology, business, and social development, South Africa remains one of the most dangerous places in the world when it comes to violent crime, with gun violence continuing to plague many communities. While the nation's economy has flourished in some sectors, the shadow of violence hangs over its cities and towns, often making headlines for tragic incidents that grab the public's attention. Among these dark chapters is the recent mass shooting that unfolded in South Africa, which sent shockwaves not just through the local community, but across the globe. On a quiet evening, 12 gunmen stormed into a local tavern in Bekkersdal, a township just outside of Johannesburg, and opened fire on unsuspecting patrons. The brutality of the attack was shocking, and the victims, who were simply enjoying a night out, became the latest casualties in a growing epidemic of gun violence. This horrifying event was not an isolated one. Rather, it was part of an alarming pattern of similar incidents that have been happening more frequently in South Africa over the past few years. As details of this mass shooting began to emerge, it quickly became clear that this was not just another tragic event. It was a stark reminder of the deep-seated issues of violence and lawlessness in the country. Despite numerous efforts by authorities to reduce gun violence and improve safety, incidents like this continue to shake the nation. The repeated nature of these attacks raises important questions. What is behind the rising number of deadly shootings? Why do these mass shootings seem to happen so often? And what does this say about the state of public safety in South Africa? Tonight, we dive deep into a tragic mass shooting in South Africa, one that left 12 dead and many others injured, a crime that's become part of a rising tide of gun violence in the nation. What does it say about the state of public safety in South Africa? This is the story we will explore, focusing not only on the specifics of this tragedy, but also on the broader issue of gun violence and the ongoing struggle for safety and justice in South Africa. The night of the mass shooting in Bekkersdal, a township situated just west of Johannesburg, unfolded in a way that no one could have predicted. The KwaNoxolo Tavern, a popular local gathering spot, was filled with people unwinding after a long day. It was a place where friends and neighbors came together to socialize. For others, the victims were young adults, just people starting out in life, perhaps unwinding after a long week or enjoying the company of friends. To them, the tavern was supposed to be a safe space, a place to relax. But instead, it became a death trap, a place where their lives were violently cut short. These victims had dreams, aspirations, and a future ahead of them. But now, all of that is gone. Their families and friends are left to remember them only in the moments before the attack, never to experience the potential that was taken from them. The emotional devastation that followed the attack was felt not only by those directly involved, but by the entire community. In a township like Bekkersdal, where everyone knows everyone, the loss was felt deeply. Neighbors, classmates, colleagues, and even strangers who had briefly interacted with the victims were all left with a profound sense of grief and disbelief. The loss of life, so sudden, so violent, so senseless, has left everyone shaken. People now live in a heightened state of anxiety, knowing that no place, not even a local tavern, is truly safe in the reach of gun violence. It's a fear that stretches far beyond the immediate aftermath and lingers in the back of people's minds every time they go out. The tragedy also reinforces the grim reality for many South Africans, especially in areas where violence is part of daily life. This shooting is a painful reminder of the rising number of deaths from gun violence in public spaces, spaces that should be shared with safety and community, not fear and terror. The fact that people can be gunned down simply for existing in a public place, whether they were out for an evening of relaxation or just passing through, speaks volumes about the level of lawlessness that can pervade certain parts of the country. For many, this incident is more than just a statistic. It's the story of individuals whose lives were cut short in a place where they should have felt safe. These were not faceless numbers in a news report. They were real people with real families, real lives, and real stories. Each victim represents a lifetime of experiences that will never be lived, a future that will never be realized. For their families, their memories are now all they have left, and that's a devastating reality to face. This shooting, like so many others, should be a wake-up call. These deaths cannot simply be filed away as just another instance of violence. They are human lives, ripped away from their families and communities. It's a painful reminder of the consequences of unchecked gun violence and the ripple effect it has on those left behind. For South Africa, and for the world, this tragedy serves as a stark illustration for the victims, their families, and the broader public. The reality is clear. This pattern of violence must be stopped before more innocent lives are taken. The country needs urgent action, not just from law enforcement, but from every level of society, to address the root causes of gun violence and rebuild trust in the systems meant to protect the people. In the wake of the devastating mass shooting in Bekkersdal, South African authorities immediately began their efforts to bring those responsible to justice. The response from law enforcement was swift, with police launching an intense investigation into the shooting. They combed through the crime scene, gathering forensic evidence, and interviewed witnesses in hopes of piecing together the sequence of events that led to the attack. Law enforcement also worked with intelligence units to trace the gunmen's movements and identify potential leads that could lead to arrests. Despite the use of these resources, however, few suspects have been apprehended. This lack of progress has left many residents and victims' families frustrated as the search for justice continues. The gunmen, having arrived in 2 vehicles and executed the attack with military-style precision, have managed to evade capture thus far. Law enforcement's efforts, while commendable, have yet to bring resolution to the victims and their families, who are left with only questions and uncertainty about when, or even if, the perpetrators will be brought to justice. While the police continue to search for those responsible, the community's response to the tragedy has been one of both shock and unity. In the face of overwhelming grief, people in Bekkersdal came together, determined not to let the violence divide them. Memorial services were held to honor the victims, and the community rallied around the grieving families. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had been affected by the tragedy participated in these ceremonies, offering support and comfort to those left behind. These acts of solidarity were a powerful reminder of the resilience of the community, even in the face of such devastating violence. But as the days passed, frustration grew. While the public came together to mourn, many felt a growing sense of helplessness. The reality of the situation was that, despite law enforcement's ongoing efforts, mass shootings and gun violence were becoming too frequent in South Africa. The crime rate had reached such heights that the once unthinkable, a deadly assault on a tavern, was now a tragic pattern rather than an anomaly. This left many questioning the effectiveness of the criminal justice system and its ability to prevent such attacks from happening in the first place. The community voiced concerns that, while law enforcement was quick to respond after the fact, preventative measures were lacking. South Africa has long struggled with issues like unemployment, poverty, and gang violence, and many believe that these societal issues are at the root of the rising violence. Yet, despite repeated calls for stronger measures to address these underlying causes, the community felt that the criminal justice system was failing them. The ongoing violence, the lack of visible change, and the seeming inability to prevent such acts from occurring left many residents feeling as though their voices were being ignored. In the days following the shooting, a sense of disillusionment began to spread throughout the community. For many, the cycle of violence seemed inescapable. The residents made their voices heard, calling for a stronger police presence, better community safety measures, and more proactive policies to stop the violence before it could strike again. This was not the first mass shooting the township had experienced, and the community was tired of feeling like they were being ignored. They were frustrated by the constant cycle of violence and a lack of accountability from those in charge of protecting them. Alongside these protests, there was a rising call for stronger gun control laws. Many felt that stricter regulations on the ownership and possession of firearms were long overdue. With illegal weapons flooding South Africa's streets, the community was demanding that authorities do more to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and gangs. The call for change was loud, but it wasn't just about the guns. While gun control was a central issue, many residents pointed out that the root causes of the violence ran much deeper. There was a growing recognition that poverty, gang violence, and limited access to education were all contributing factors to the rampant crime in the area. In a township like Bekkersdal, where many struggle to make ends meet, young people often find themselves drawn into gangs as a means of survival or a sense of belonging. With few resources available for education, job opportunities, and social mobility, these individuals are more vulnerable to the lure of a life of crime. The cycle continues. As more young people become involved in violence and more innocent lives are lost, the community's demand for change was clear. More than just stronger gun laws was needed. They needed a holistic approach that tackled the root causes of crime, an approach that addressed economic inequality, provided opportunities for the youth, and ultimately offered a path toward a safer, more secure life for all residents. For many, the shooting in Bekkersdal became a symbol of everything that was wrong with the current state of the nation's fight against gun violence. It was a painful reminder that despite South Africa's many achievements, the deep-seated issues that contribute to crime, such as poverty, inequality, and gang activity, continue to wreak havoc on communities like Bekkersdal. The aftermath of the shooting has pushed residents to ask, when will things change? How much longer can they live in fear? And what will it take for the government and law enforcement to finally take action to address these underlying issues? The community's response to this tragedy was one of both mourning and action, a determination to never let such an event happen again without a fight. They were no longer willing to accept the status quo. They had lost too much, and they were demanding change. The shooting in Bekkersdal is a call to action for South Africa, urging the country to confront the systemic issues at the heart of its rising violence and ensure that the next generation does not have to face the same fear and tragedy. The tragic shooting in Bekkersdal is far more than just an isolated incident. It's part of a larger, deeply troubling pattern of gun violence that has become a pervasive issue throughout South Africa. While the Bekkersdal Tavern shooting has shocked the community and the nation, it also serves as a reminder of the underlying crisis that continues to affect many neighborhoods across the country. South Africa's gun violence epidemic is not simply about individuals making bad decisions, but rather the result of a combination of systemic issues, organized crime, and socioeconomic disparities that have taken root over decades. At its core, South Africa's gun violence is intricately tied to the broader issue of organized crime, particularly the ongoing turf wars and gang activity that are a staple in many areas. Gangs fight for control of illicit economies, drug trade, arms trafficking, and illegal mining. And as a result, violence spills over into everyday life. These groups are heavily armed and often have it's about tackling inequality head-on and providing opportunities for the younger generation to thrive in a safer environment. The tragedy in Bekkersdal highlights the need for a comprehensive approach to addressing violence in South Africa. It's not just about stronger laws or harsher punishments for criminals. It's about addressing the deeper systemic issues that allow crime to flourish in the first place. Communities, law enforcement, and the government must work in tandem to create solutions that go beyond the immediate shock of a mass shooting and focus on prevention and long-term recovery. Ultimately, the question remains, how can South Africa break free from this cycle of violence? And what will it take to ensure that future generations don't have to live in the shadow of fear? For communities like Bekkersdal, the answer lies in more than just catching the gunmen. It lies in building a society that values and prioritizes safety, opportunity, and justice for all its people. As we wrap up the tragic story of the Bekkersdal mass shooting, it's important to remember that this incident is not just another number in a crime report. It's a heartbreaking tragedy that has left deep, lasting scars on the families and communities affected. The 9 lives that were lost, the 10 who were injured, and the hundreds of others who witnessed or felt the reverberations of this violence will carry the trauma with them forever. For the families who lost loved ones, the pain is more than just the absence of a person. It's the loss of a future and the grief of not knowing why it had to happen. For the community of Bekkersdal, this shooting is a painful reminder of how quickly life can turn upside down, leaving behind only devastation and unanswered questions. But this tragedy is not unique to Bekkersdal. South Africa and the world at large are grappling with similar incidents, where innocent lives are snatched away in an instant. In South Africa, the gun violence epidemic has become so entrenched that it no longer shocks us in the way it should. Mass shootings, gang violence, and senseless killings seem to have become part of the landscape in too many parts of the world. These events are not just statistics. They represent lives lost, families broken, and communities living in fear. The emotional cost of such violence is immeasurable.